Hello, welcome to Storytime Sunday. So this week's story is coming from Joshua chapter 6. This is the chapter in which God gives Joshua the promise that he's going to give him the city Jericho. And so after God gives him the promise, he gives Joshua very specific instructions that he wants him to follow. So for the first 6 days, God just wants Joshua to gather all of his men and the priests and everybody, and they're supposed to march around the city Jericho one time for 6 days, not saying a word. But on the seventh day, the instructions change. God wants them to march around 7 times while still remaining quiet. And when they hear a sound, there's going to be like a signal of when he wants them to actually start shouting. And so they're supposed to shout as loud as they can. Now, as I was reading this, some questions came to mind. The first question was, what was a promise that God has given me? And then the second question was, what were the very specific instructions that God gave me to follow? Because with every promise, God gives us instructions that he wants us to follow so that we can have manifestation of the promise that he said that we have, okay? So the next thing, it says that Joshua got up super early to march, okay? Now, I'm very sure that Joshua did not understand how marching around this city would give him, in fact, the city. But it didn't matter that he didn't understand the instructions. He just got up and he marched. He got up early. He did not delay in doing the thing that God told him to do. So that was another thing that came out. Joshua truly made following God's instructions a priority, which poses the question, like, how have we prioritized the instructions that God has given us? My pastor is currently going through a series where he's really saying that if we fail to see God's instructions as important, then disobeying them will be easy, because we don't see it as important. And so we don't necessarily want to do it. We don't put it on a top priority to do it, and maybe it slips our mind and all the other stuff. It gets on the low priority list, and we'll get to it when we get to it. And that's not what we should be doing. That's the complete opposite of what Joshua did. Joshua literally got up early every single morning, gathered his men, and then they went marching around. Another thing is that we should be mindful that delayed obedience means delayed manifestation, which makes me think about the children of Israel who were in the wilderness for 40 years. Like, that was literally an 11-day journey, but because of the fact that they delayed in being obedient to God, a lot of them died in the wilderness before they even made it, before the children all together made it to the promised land. And so our delayed obedience means delayed manifestation. So maybe you've been in your situation for as long as you have because you haven't fully followed God's instructions. So there's a promise, and I'm speaking for myself because that's all I can do, but there's a promise that God gave me back in 2021. And because of the fact that for 3 years I've literally dragged my feet halfway doing his instructions, because he's very specific in his instructions. Had Joshua and his men went and they was having their sidebar conversations, and maybe they didn't want to walk the whole lap around, so they did halfway and then they turned back around and went home. Or maybe on that 7th day they only did 3 laps instead of 7 laps, and then when they heard the sound they didn't necessarily shout as loud as they could. Whatever the case may be, halfway doing God's instructions don't count. Like, that's delayed obedience. And so our delayed obedience results in delayed manifestation. So it really comes down to, how quick do I want whatever it is that God said that I can have? Because if I want it right now, then that means that I need to obey his instructions exactly how he said do. This reminds me of a story. If somebody gives you a recipe for their famous, like they make it perfect every single time, and they give you that specific instruction, if you want to go and get creative and be like, oh, I know they said 375, put the oven on 375, but I really feel like it could go on 400, well, you're not going to get the results you're not going to get the results that they intended for you to have. And so by us halfway doing God's instructions, we're not going to get everything that he said that we would have. So how have you prioritized God's instructions that he's given you? And then also, are you doing it to the T? Like, are you really doing exactly what it is that he said? Because, I mean, we're all grown. We can get around some stuff if we really want to. Be like, okay, God, I know you said don't say nothing, but I'm going to make sure my face shows exactly what I want. Like, they're going to know by my face what I want to say. No. Like, literally do exactly what it is that God said do, and you'll get exactly what it is that he said that you can have. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Storytime Sunday. I know it's been a minute since we've met in Storytime Sunday form, so I wanted to get on here and just share this word that God is really dealing with me on, and making sure that, one, I'm not being slowful in doing what God told me to do. And then when I do it, I'm doing it exactly how he tells me to do, because God is literally the master strategist. He knows exactly what it is that we need to be doing at every single moment of the day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.